Deadpool has truly revived Marvel in calling himself the Marvel Jesus, and in many ways, that's accurate. Meanwhile, DC has been struggling, but when the new Superman trailer dropped, excitement surged. Fans are hopeful about what's next for DC. But here's the big question: is James Gunn the DC Jesus? I don't get the answer, but in the end, and you'll get answer. Have you ever seen Marvel do a reboot? Exactly never. That's because they had a clear plan from the beginning. Sure, they're struggling a bit now, but at least their storytelling foundation is intact. On the flip side, the DC universe has been a rebooting machine, constantly hitting the reset button, and that's a huge reason why their cinematic universe hasn't resonated with fans the way Marvel's has. The magic of a cinematic universe lies in its continuity. Fans love the feeling that every movie they watch builds towards something greater, connecting characters and events across different films. Marvel nailed this formula, even if it's just teasing what's next in their iconic post-credit scenes. DC, unfortunately, failed in this department. Their films felt more like isolated islands than pieces of a larger puzzle. Now, let's talk about James Gunn's decision to reboot the DCU. This move essentially turned all the previous DC movies into meaningless one-offs. For fans who invested time and emotion into characters like Henry Cavill's Superman or Ben Affleck's Batman, it's like being told their loyalty was for nothing. And this lack of connection is precisely why recent films like Aquaman and The Lost Kingdom and The Flash flopped. Why should fans care about these movies when they have zero relevance to the future of the DCU? But here's the twist: James Gunn's reboot could actually be a smart move in the long run.
What?
The previous DC films were already a tangled mess with no clear direction or consistent continuity. A fresh start might be exactly what DC needs to compete with Marvel in the future. However, this reset comes at a price. Gunn shattered the trust and loyalty of longtime DC fans. Recast. When you think about Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. instantly comes to mind. That's what it means to be iconic for the DC universe. Henry Cavill is that same icon for Superman. Marvel, even when they stumble, still leans on their icons because they know their value. But DC, they've done the unthinkable. They recast their icon. Why? What is their game plan here? If this is supposed to be a total reboot, then what's the deal with keeping John Cena as Peacemaker? Why is he staying while Henry Cavill, arguably the face of DC, is out? Did James Gunn somehow not notice Cena? One of DC's strongest pillars is the Superman and Batman fan base. They're the heart of the DCU, and Gunn should have delivered perfect recasts for these iconic heroes to solidify his vision. Now, the question remains: who is the face of the new DCU? Is it the new Superman actor, or is it James Gunn himself? Because when I think of DC right now, Henry Cavill is still the image that comes to mind. Gunn hasn't managed to change that, and honestly, it feels less like Gunn is rebooting DC and more like he's trying to replicate Marvel's formula. Look at his casting choices. They're pulling from actors known for comedy and lighthearted roles. The tone seems to be shifting towards a colorful, jokey Marvel vibe, abandoning the darker, more serious tone that defined the old DCU. While Marvel's humor works for them, is not what made DC unique. Let's talk about The Batman. It's undeniably one of the greatest films DC has ever produced. Gritty, grounded, and beautifully crafted. But even with all the love it received, it couldn't cross the $1 billion mark. Why? The problem wasn't the quality of the movie. It's that DC doesn't have the massive, loyal audience that Marvel commands. Even though Batman is a globally recognized character, DC still struggles to pull in the numbers Marvel routinely does. Now, look at James Gunn's future plans. Instead of focusing on DC's heavy hitters like Batman, Superman, or Wonder Woman, he's prioritizing movies about obscure characters like the Authority and Booster Gold. Let's be honest, how many people outside hardcore comic fans even know who these characters are? The general audience certainly doesn't. So who's going to rush to theaters for these movies? Some might argue, a good movie doesn't need a big-name character to succeed. And that's true to an extent. But here's the harsh reality: if multiple movies flop financially, how is DC supposed to fund future projects or maintain momentum? Creating movies around unknown characters is a massive risk. If it works, great. But if it doesn't, DC could find itself in yet another reboot cycle, further damaging its already shaky reputation. James Gunn did an incredible job turning Guardians of the Galaxy into a household name. He took a group of relatively unknown characters and made them shine. But here's the key difference: Guardians was under the Marvel umbrella, a brand that was already dominating the box office with a proven track record. People trusted Marvel to deliver quality entertainment, so they were willing to take a chance on Guardians. DC doesn't have that luxury. They've been struggling for years, and their track record has been wildly inconsistent. For every hit like The Batman, there's a flop like The Flash or Black Adam. DC doesn't have the audience's trust. So when a new film is announced, many people automatically assume it's just another failure waiting to happen. That's why Gunn's plan to introduce lesser-known characters like the Authority or Booster Gold is a huge gamble. Marvel's dominance during its peak wasn't just about flashy heroes or big action, it was about purpose. Every movie in the Infinity Saga was part of a larger plan, building toward one epic showdown with Thanos. The focus on the Infinity Stones gave the MCU a clear direction, and each film contributed to character development while pushing the overarching story forward. Audiences knew where the journey was heading, and that sense of anticipation kept them invested. Now, look at DC. What's the purpose of its future? What's the big picture? Who's the main villain tying everything together? Right now, it feels like the only person who knows is James Gunn, and that's the problem. Fans are left in the dark, with no clue about what the DCU is building toward, and let's face it, uncertainty doesn't inspire confidence, especially for a studio already struggling to maintain audience trust. Without a clear endgame, it's hard to keep fans engaged. Marvel kept audiences hooked because every movie felt like a piece of a larger puzzle. DC, on the other hand, has no Thanos-like figure to rally around, no overarching storyline to unite its films. Instead, it feels like Gunn is playing it by ear, and that's not enough to compete in the current cinematic landscape. Right now, it feels like DC's future is less about creating a cohesive universe and more about James Gunn's personal creative experiments. Fans need a reason to invest their time and emotions. They need a purpose, a destination. Without that, the DCU risks feeling directionless, and audiences will stop caring before it even gets off the ground. I'm just sharing my honest thoughts here, straight from the heart. I don't hold any grudges against James Gunn, nor am I a comic book expert or lore decoder. I'm simply someone who loves watching movies. At the end of the day, all we want is a good movie to enjoy. If you have a different opinion, feel free to share it in the comments below.